サーブには見えない翼がある。航空機作りから生まれた妥協なき革新の哲学。サーブ 9000CS 新登場。西武自動車販売ネットワークへ。
Welcome to the Saab and the Rearview Mirror podcast. I'm your host, John Christensen. This podcast is a celebration of all things Saab from the perspective of ex-Saab corporate employees who witness the day-to-day operations of one of the best company environments in the automotive business. It is an insider's look at the mostly good times at Saab, shared through the stories of those that live them. My time at Saab started in December 1984 and lasted just shy of 39 years, with my retirement in October 2023. It was a great run, and I look back with fond and fun memories, as do most of my fellow ex-Saabis, who I will be chatting with in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you for joining me on this road trip as we look in the rearview mirror at Saab. This podcast supports SaabParts.com and SaabGear.com, the exclusive supplier of Saab original parts and Saab branded swag. Even though Saab cars are no longer made, there are still 1 million Saabs on the road all over the world. Here in North America, the Saab legacy lives on to ensure you can access the parts and expertise to ensure a long and happy life for your Saab. Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Saab and the Rearview Mirror podcast. I'm your host, John Christensen, and today my guest is a almost 20-year Saab employee who started with Saab in 1976 and finished up his career in 1995. He is of many things. He's my ex-boss. He's my mentor. He is my sometimes life coach. And most of all, I call him my friend. Please welcome Mike Raflowitz.
Well, thank you, John. Glad to be here today.
Thank you for coming on the show. And this is attempt number 2 as we work our way through amateur podcasting technical problems. It's always a lot of fun. One thing I didn't have in the introduction is mention all the different jobs you had at Saab, because they are so numerous in that 20-year period. Maybe you can just give me a brief resume of your time at Saab.
You know, in my 20 years, I try to go through and figure out the count, but well over 15 jobs. A lot of them became because of near the end, we had a lot of reorganizations.
Yeah.
And a lot of jobs were combined. So that added to my total a little bit.
Yeah.
But
what were the highlights?
Yeah, I started out in the warranty department, which I enjoyed, working for a guy named Tom Coyne and Dick Elston, and traveled around the United States doing warranty seminars, which I enjoyed quite a bit. And then out of nowhere, I was approached with Saab was looking for district service and parts managers out in the field, and they were having a hard time hiring them and find qualified people. So they decided to do an in-house training program where for a year I would be assigned to no one, but would work with every department at Saab. So I would get knowledge and experience of what everyone did and how the system worked. So that when I went out into the field and was visiting the dealers, then I would be able to, really be beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm.
So for a year I did that, and the program ended kind of abruptly because Bill Charles was the gentleman's name who was the director of parts and service. And he got an offering to go with DeLorean in Ireland. So he told me that my time was quickly coming to an end, and I had 2 choices. I could either join him with DeLorean, or he would find a place for me out in the field right away before this position was eliminated. So I decided not to join DeLorean.
Would that have been in Ireland?
In Ireland. For 6 months, I would have gone for training there on the vehicle, engine, transmission, body, and all that. But I was seeing my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and we were getting close to getting engaged, and she was not a big supporter of me taking off for 6 months and joining DeLorean. So due to her pressure, I decided not to, and I took a field assignment and had Maine Vermont in New Hampshire for 3 years as a service and parts rep. And then when my buddy Jay Flagg, who had Connecticut and Rhode Island, heard I was engaged and getting married, he figured I wanted to come back to Connecticut, and he had an opportunity to become a sales trainer. So he called me up and said, I'm giving you an early wedding present. I'm going to take the sales trainer job, and you could have Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Wow.
Which I took, and then we got married, and at least I didn't have to travel that much initially. It was just, in covering the two states.
So you did extensive travel as a warranty administrator, but that was nationwide, not regional?
Nationwide, which was great. Yeah, great time.
Yeah.
And what I would do is what anyone would do. In the winter, I made sure I was in either ski areas or nice warm areas. And then when the weather changed, I would follow the sun, so to speak.
So no North Dakota in January meetings?
No, definitely not.
Smart man.
Yeah, they could tell me that, but no. So that was it. And then the region started to go. A gentleman named Bill Kelly joined us from down south, and he was a district sales manager when I was the service and parts manager in Connecticut and Rhode Island. Then he got a promotion to go into the regional office. And since we were good friends and we worked together well, he offered me an assignment. So I kind of followed him into the regional office and gave up my district position.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kept moving and I kept following. And Bill Kelly then gradually became the president of Saab. And when he did that, I became the director of parts and accessories.
Right.
And that's when you and I hooked up. And
actually, it was before that, because it was with you and myself and Angela Richter in the regional office for the first year.
Oh, okay.
Remember, you were, now how am I telling you about your career? But I remember, because I remember it was the first year.
Yeah, you remember different things, I think, when you're going through all these transitions.
But that was a great year where I think Angela and I got to know you when you were the regional parts and service, or just parts manager, I think.
So originally it was regional service manager.
Okay.
And then we had our first reorganization and became service and parts.
Okay.
And then the field reps became service and parts. And then we had a few guys like Ron Higgins, who was a parts specialist. And he would visit the dealers when we were just kind of overwhelmed a little bit trying to do the other things. Because
I remember, well, Angela and I still talk about it. We had so much fun that first year. We definitely worked, but it was you were a great boss, no question.
But then we were all young and having fun, right?
Oh yeah. But then you got promoted up to national. Right. I remember. And I did one more year there and then moved on to the warehouse in Meriden. So, boy, where'd the time go? So when I started in December of 84, you were still in the field, I think?
In 84, yes. I would have still been.
Yeah, because I did
Connecticut, Rhode Island, yeah.
Yeah, I did about a year and a half in customer relations and then moved over to parts. I think I'm almost the exact same time when you came into the office, I think. Yeah. Cool.
But the best thing I did was to work in that training position where they had me work in every department at Saab.
Yeah.
So I really got to know everyone in service parts, distribution, accounting, legal, and it really just helped it. So as I continued to grow with the company, at least I knew where everything was,
Yeah. It's funny, when I went to the Allentown facility in 93, that was run by Caterpillar, and they had the exact same program. They had a 1-year plan, and every 2 weeks their people changed. And the guy who worked there was telling me he was on the assembly line building bulldozers for 2 weeks, and then he was in accounting for 2 weeks. He's talking about what you're doing the next day. He said. So.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you joined Caterpillar, we had 3 warehouses at the time, distribution centers, and of course. Yeah. That all got closed and down, and then we outsourced all the parts and operation. Yeah.
Right. So that brought you to National Parts Director or Parts and Service Director?
Originally, it was Director of Parts and Accessories.
Okay.
And then, and I was in charge of the warehouses.
Okay.
So I had 3 distribution centers and 101 people in all the groups, and some was union and some was non-union.
Right. And that's when we had a facility in Meriden, and was it Atlanta at that time?
And San Francisco.
And it was already in Frisco, because they had closed the Los Angeles facility and moved it to Frisco, right?
Right.
Okay. And how many years did you do that job?
Actually, I only did that for a couple of years. It was it was the dream job that I always wanted at Saab, and unfortunately, I did that for about just under 2 years, and then they combined. There was another reorganization and they combined parts and service. So
Mm-hmm.
I became director of parts and service.
Right.
And then there was another person that was in charge of the field reps. So then I became in charge of the field reps for service, parts, and sales, reporting directly to Bill Kelly, who was the president at the time.
Right. Okay.
And that was fun.
And then that lasted till they moved to Georgia, the headquarters.
Right.
And then tell me about your next step overseas, how that came
Well,
to be.
they invited me to go to Georgia, Atlanta.
Right.
And unfortunately, at the time, we weren't in a position to move to Atlanta. So they let me stay in the regional office in Connecticut.
Okay.
They told me for a year. And then I had to either decide to go to Atlanta or do something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had a year to sort it out. And so I was in the regional office back in the Eastern region doing
Right.
marketing and service and parts.
Okay.
Everything was combined. And then out of the blue, Ray Rushka, who was doing dealer development at the time down in Atlanta, got an opportunity to run Saab of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a time where they were looking to branch out. The Swedes were looking to include Americans more into their long-term planning, where in the past it was always Swedes that always had these positions. So Ray got the opportunity to go to Japan, and he called me up and asked me if I would like to work with him. And I would be in charge of parts and service, and he would do sales. And my wife, Debbie, and I flew over to Japan for a couple of weeks to check it out, meet people,
Mm-hmm.
and we decided we liked it, found an apartment, came back, packed everything up, and moved to Japan.
Wow. And you and I stayed in touch over that period of time. And I remember you telling me about all kinds of how life was so different there. And it was at one time you said, I got to have a steak or ribs or something. And you had to go to Tony Roma's and it was cost you like $800 or something.
The prices were, incredible. I mean, the pizza was, 2 pizzas would cost you $80 at Domino's or something.
Yeah.
Wow. But the real good story you should tell is how back in the day, because there were no cell phones were just coming out, and there was no real TV over there to watch. Yeah. And my daughter was missing so many of her shows back in the States. You used to pack me up a little care package of DVDs VHS tapes.
Yes. Yes. The secret is out. So we apologize to Saab that we kind of abused the mail system. And
I was allowed a weekly package, they said.
Right.
And you just kind of
I made it a little heavier. Yes. We started that because that was the early days of VCRs. I think I had a $900 VCR. And you would ask me to tape some shows, and it was like, well, I don't know what you like, so I just taped what I like, which was Seinfeld and ER and Letterman and whatever, SNL and Cheers was on at the time, all those shows. And of course, you put on the 6-hour mode, and then we did 6 hours of Nickelodeon, which is the really only channel I could get for your young daughter. And that I would go to, I guess it was Caldor's back then, and when there was a sale, and get 20 VHSs, for $10 or something.
Right.
And so that became a weekly thing. And that's how you got your American TV. And I laugh because you would even watch the commercials. You just had missed American television over there. Because you said you could only get CNN, that I remember.
CNN was the only thing we got, and a lot of Japanese game shows, which are really bizarre because they really abuse and hurt people in these game shows, and it's just... It's all slapstick humor, it's just funny stuff.
And of course, when you came back, I laughed because you had a couple of boxes. You saved every tape and shipped it back from Japan. Like, what am I going to do with them? It's like, no, just throw those out.
But at the time I knew that you had to go buy them, and and I thought maybe who knew they were going to be obsolete by the time I came home in 3 years.
Yeah, too funny.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a pleasure doing that, though. It was kind of fun. Of course, I was willing my taste on you, but hopefully we shared some of the same taste and shows.
Oh, no, definitely did. And we don't have to talk about the one time you snuck a Playboy into someone.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Tell me about that again. What happened? I forgot. I got you in trouble,
someone
didn't
in the warehouse thought it'd be funny to stick a girly magazine in my care package.
Okay.
Not realizing it goes through customs.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, my secretary came in, Michiko, and said, "There's a problem. Your package is held up at customs." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" She said, "There's some girly magazine that they
Oh,
put in your
geez.
package, and they're
Was
holding
that,
it up for that." So
did I do that? I can't remember. I
I
guess
don't
I
know
did
if you
that.
did it or someone did it there as a joke, knowing you were sending the package out.
Geez, I don't remember now. Oh, that's funny. It was probably me. I probably had a subscription back then or
Yeah,
something.
so they took the magazine and sent me the package. So
Oh, did they keep
it
the
finally,
magazine?
oh
That's
yeah,
funny. Oh,
definitely.
that's funny. That's hilarious. I know we're jumping all over the place, but just to touch on Japan again, your first week there, was it absolute total shock, or were you just working so much? Or
It was so we were there when I first got there. We were there for a couple weeks, just about a month, getting settled. And out of the blue, they announced that Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors were approached by the U.S. government to come over and set up operations in Japan to help with the trade imbalance. They wanted
Mhm.
the big three to sell big ticket items to the Japanese, so more dollars would come home because too much yen too many dollars were going overseas and not enough yen was coming back.
Mhm.
So General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler announced out of the blue that they were setting up operations in Tokyo, and we were now going to be part of GM Japan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I mean, you remember GM bought the
Yeah,
big part, 50% of Saab back then.
right.
So we were told to pack up our office. We're moving in with GM Japan, and we're still getting used to the place. And by then, in this very short time, some things had transpired. Ray Rushka, who was there with his wife and a little baby at the time, they had some issues and medical issues that came up and stuff. And he decided to go back home to the States.
Mhm.
So he didn't even make, I think he was there for maybe 4 or 5 months, the max.
Hmm.
And then I got a call from Saab saying that Ray was leaving because he had left. I didn't know he was leaving. He was back in the States. And I was told he's just not coming back. And then they asked me if I would take over the position. And I said, gee, I would love to. So I was promoted to area manager. And then they sent me a fellow named Pontus Hagstrom from Sweden to come join me. And he was going to, and the two of us ran the show. So it was
Mhm.
fun.
Now, maybe I'm remembering this wrong. Was it just Japan, or did you also have Korea or something? Other
So yeah,
areas?
so we had a regional office in Singapore.
Okay.
So first I was, again, all job titles. First I was a regional service and parts manager for Japan, and then I became area manager. And then they realized that the title area manager didn't have much respect or leverage in Asia. So I became general manager, and they decided to give me Korea and also the military bases.
Oh.
We did a lot of military sales,
Mm-hmm.
where people could buy a car and we'd ship it back to the dealer close to them in the States when they, cycled out. So I'd go to the bases probably once or twice a year, make sure they had brochures, they knew all about the cars, and would help them out with stuff. And of course, stop by the PX and buy some supplies to bring back to Japan because things are so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I had those areas, and then it carried on when General Motors joined. Well, we joined General Motors.
Was that a huge facility they had there in Tokyo? Or?
It was, and
Yeah.
they decided at the very beginning that we would have to learn Japanese.
Oh, wow.
So Debbie and Elizabeth took Japanese, which was great for them. But I realized very quickly, General Motors, being General Motors, decided that everyone in the office had to speak English, including secretaries and everyone was
Mm-hmm.
bilingual except for the Americans who only knew English. So they very quickly told me, don't waste my time learning Japanese, because whenever I went out of the office, they were going to send an interpreter with me anyways.
Oh, wow.
So the first week that we joined GM, the new president from Detroit came over, and they had a big party for him at the Imperial in Tokyo. Very expensive restaurant, very expensive hotel. And he was there his first week. They had a welcome party for him, and the cocktail party ran from like 7 to 11:30 at night. And we ate and drank like kings, and just had a good time. And then when the party got over, everyone got in queue to get in the taxi to go home. I got in the taxi cab and realized I didn't know how to say anything.
Yeah.
So I got out of the cab and stood there, and people were trying to help me. And I'm just please, just give me a minute to get my thoughts. And I realized I had my new business card, and one side was English, one side was Japanese. So I got back in the taxi cab, showed him the Japanese side, and he took me to the office. And then from there, I knew how to walk home.
Oh, well, so you're still able to walk. That's
Yeah,
great.
it was close by. Yeah.
Because you didn't have a vehicle there.
No, I actually did.
Oh, you did?
My position came with a car, so I had a Saab convertible.
Oh, no.
For the 3 years I was there, yeah.
Was it a popular vehicle in Japan?
No one had a Saab convertible.
Yeah.
When I drove that around, I mean, it was like you were driving a Ferrari or something. People stop and stare at you and try to figure out. It was red. It was all the right colors and everything. So it really caught people's eye.
And that was the first or second gen convertible?
That was still 900.
Oh, okay. So the first gen. Yeah. That's right. With 93. Because my first was a 95 convertible, where the top quit within 30 days.
Oh.
Back when remember that bulletin that was 85 pages long or something, how to fix the top. Yeah.
How to synchronize all the different micro switches.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you were there 3 years in Japan?
3 years.
3 years. And then what happened? They wanted to move you around, if I remember, to another country?
When I was first sent over, I had a contract. When they send you on an overseas assignment, they put together a contract which says that at the end of 3 years, I would be either offered another position overseas, or I would be given a position back in the States equal to or better than what I had. So, the 3 years I was there, I mean, I got to meet a lot of people traveling all over Asia and then going back to Sweden for meetings. I mean, we took a Japanese journalist over for ice racing. We had Saab had a track up in northern Sweden where we raced on with studded tires on the track.
I was there.
You were there. Okay,
I did it. I did it. That was great.
Yeah. How'd you do?
I wound up in the snowbanks at least 3 times and had to be towed out. But this was in 2002 February, and I never laughed so hard in my life. I mean, just lost control laughing because it was just 90 miles an hour spinning out into the snow. And
you didn't care.
Nobody cared.
Because they weren't cars that they were ever going to sell again.
Right.
And they had a tow truck there to pull you off.
Yeah. It was, and what was the race car guy? Per, his full name.
Yeah, came after.
Per Eklund. Okay. I think he was there training us how to ice drive, and then he took us on a hot lap with the 5-point harness. Only 2 points would fit me, So I'm like I'm holding on to the shoulder harnesses, and the waist was the only one to work. And then he did the same thing. He said, emergency brake turns or corners at 90 miles an hour or whatever.
Right.
So that was fun. Yeah, you were there during a good time, but when it came to that 3 years, you decided you did not want to move?
No. Well, they offered me a position in Singapore.
Okay.
In the regional office. Again, Saab, when General Motors bought the company, everything was a 3-year plan. First year, you would show up. Second year, you had to make your mark. Third year, they moved you somewhere. And that way, they kept control of your life and because you were never settled in. So we did really well in Japan, but after 3 years, they decided they wanted to move the office, save money, to Singapore to be part of the regional office. And I would commute from Singapore to Tokyo or Korea. And, that just wasn't going to be much fun. So I decided that's not what I wanted to do. And we had a big they had a worldwide meeting in Sweden, in Trollhättan, and the U.S. was there, of course, represented, and I was there working with. I brought in a group of people from Tokyo, and I went over to meet with the U.S. people. And Bill Kelly was gone, and Saturn was going out, so they needed a place to put the Saturn people. So they gave them all the top positions at Saab.
Yeah.
And so when I walked over to the table, nobody knew me. In this short period of time, except for the HR guy, Tom Reese. He was the only one there who knew who I was when I walked over.
Right.
And he explained to the new president and all these new people that I was from the U.S. and I was actually on the U.S. payroll.
Mm.
And I was coming back to the States and they had to find a place for me. So I told them I was very excited to come join them. And of course, they weren't excited to see me because they had
No.
everything had changed. The whole culture at Saab had changed. It was all GM now. And
right.
So I was fortunate in a way that they didn't offer. They told me there was no spot for me, and they put together a package kind of quickly. And when I finished in August of '95, I just came home and with my container, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, later on, we're going to talk about your life after Saab, but we've been all over the place. So I'd like to go way back now and talk about where you were born and where you grew up.
Well, I was born in New Haven.
Okay.
And went to school and lived all my life, for the most part, in West Haven, one town over.
West Haven.
West Haven, yeah.
West Haven, yeah.
And of all things, I joined the Interact Club in high school, which was a division of Rotary.
Okay.
And it was Rotary Club at the time was all business people, men and women. And there was a guy there, Howard Heck, that owned the Saab dealer in West Haven. Mm-hmm. And I got to know him in high school. I told him I love cars, and how do I get in the car business? And he said to me, when I graduated from UConn, which I had planned to go to school, come see him. And he knew people at the headquarters there in Orange, and he tried to help me get in the position there. And yeah.
Going back to UConn, which campus were you at?
I was at the Stanford branch for 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the way it worked is then you went up to Stores to finish out your last couple of years.
Yeah. I just mentioned that because my dad graduated from Stores at UConn, early 50s, I think, on the GI Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still haven't been to the campus to this day. But
I'm kidding.
When I was going to college, I got branched in somewhere near Haven, I remember. But
yeah. Was your dad married at the time?
No, single. Yeah.
Because they had I remember seeing at UConn at Stores when the guys were coming back from the service, if you were married, they had trailers of all things.
Really?
For couples to stay in, and then the single guys or women would stay in the dorms. But they actually set up trailers for married couples because some had kids coming back from the service and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right after I think he got out of school. Was like he was sick of the cold weather and came to Florida, which has been my second home almost all my life. And my mom, being Canadian, also sick of the cold and worked in Miami as a nurse. And they met in like the late 50s, or married in 57. But so where did you get the interest in cars? Where'd that come from?
When I was always fascinated with cars. And then when I was in high school, a friend of mine raced figure-8 cars.
Oh, wow.
You know what a figure-8 track is? Oh, yeah. Where you cross at the X.
Scary as hell, yeah.
And his name was Bob Siebold, and he was actually the track champion for 5 years up in Riverside Amusement Park up in Agway, Massachusetts. And I started to hang around with him through his brother, and became part of his pit crew. And we'd go twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays, and get the car ready and race up there. And because he was the track champion for 5 years, it was pretty cool to hang around with him. And, for the most part, we were always winning. And I actually even got to drive in the race with him. And
geez.
It was fun.
That figure-8, that's
crazy,
pretty terrifying, right?
Yeah, because when they hit at the X, it hurts. Yeah,
because he must have got hit a lot, right? Everybody did. Yeah. Oh, and you have no injuries from that, huh?
No. Luckily, I only was in one race and got hit early and taken out. But he had a way of checking out the corner from the far part of the 8, and he always usually made it through. So
because they still do that today in some places. And I think it was on the internet, it was school bus figure-8 racing. Oh. That's a thing now. And then there's the car and trailer or truck and trailer race. Oh, crazy. But a night of chaos.
And actually, the end of the story, though, but in Islip, Long Island, they used to have the World Championship figure eight race every year, going back to those days. So he was track champ. He always got an invitation down to Long Island, and we'd go every year. And he won the big race there because it was kind of a local controlled, but we had fun going anyway. So
yeah. Well, I remember when I was a kid, my dad would take me up to Waterford, Connecticut, to the Waterford Speed Bowl, but I don't think they ever had figure eight there. I think it was just
no, that was just a track. Yeah. We even had in West Haven, where I grew up, when I was in high school. It just ended just before high school, but we had West Haven Speedway. We had a track in our in the town. So again, cool. It was always racing going around somewhere.
Yeah, back when it was affordable.
Yeah,
I don't think it's so affordable anymore. No. What do you of your 20-year career? What was your favorite time?
Oh, my favorite time was probably, I would say two parts. I would say the U.S. part, with all of you, with everyone that I worked with in the U.S. and grew up with. I started right out of college rather, and got married when I was there and everything. And everyone else was going through the same stuff, it seemed. So we became such a close knit, right? We all knew everybody and had each other's back and just had such a good time at national meetings, dealer trips to Sweden. Who gets to do that? They would take the whole company just about to Sweden.
Right. Because I remember when I worked for you guys were always somewhere on a meeting, gone for the whole week, and it became a ghost town because you guys were somewhere.
We had Goodyear tires on the car, so I got to be good friends with the guy from Goodyear, Jean-Claude, and he got us up on the Goodyear blimp a couple times.
Oh my gosh!
And so that was a great opportunity.
Oh,
and, and as you say, ice racing and up in northern Sweden, dealer trips, and the year we took over the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh yes,
and that whole facility.
Previous podcast guest talked extensively about the Nashville Opry. Now, which year was that? That was the 80s, I think.
Yeah, I have to go back and
yeah. Was that speaking of that, is that your favorite meeting? We just touched on meetings.
I think it was probably that was probably my favorite U.S. meeting.
Yeah.
In Sweden, though, the Swedish meetings were just, as you know, were over the top. We got to see the trucks and buses assembly line, car assembly line. They always had a Viggen jet aircraft show they would put on.
Oh, wow.
And we'd sit on a hill and watch the jets take off. And, it made you realize what a big company Saab was, Saab Scania, and the clout we had, especially in Europe.
And that was before GM just carved out the car division. So you got to see all of it. Of course, I started too. There was the small bus plant in West Haven, I guess. And and then they were selling the trucks too. Yeah, that was overwhelming.
John,
and then
at the height, when you first went up to Meriden, we had trucks, buses, we had cars, of course. We had the Saab aircraft, Saab Fairchild, the
commuter plane. American Eagle had a lot of them. I know.
Yeah. So we were a force to reckon with until the Scania group decided they weren't going to pay for our fun anymore.
Yeah. that didn't work. Remember with the buses, you can see them in old Magnum PI episodes because Honolulu had a Scania bus contract, and there's a couple episodes, a bus goes by and it says Scania on it, Yeah. And there was a truck when I lived in Allentown those 30 years. One of the guys, a truck driver, was still driving it. Right up to when I left in like 2024, you would still see it, still running around. Yeah. And I remember that people said it was the most comfortable truck to drive around. And how about your favorite Sweden trip, though? You touched on that.
Well, the dealer trips were fun, but probably the best one was we had a trip where when I was in charge of parts and accessories, where we went over to Sweden. And actually, it was before I had that position. I was still out in the field because Bill Murray, remember Bill Murray?
Yeah, head of parts.
He was in charge of parts and accessories before me. And when we were over there, he saw we were walking through a marina and there was a boat for sale, an old Swedish fishing boat that he decided he had to have.
Oh my gosh.
So he left the group for a little bit. Next thing I know, he came back and he bought the boat. And then the Swedes had to figure out how to ship it over.
Oh, jeez.
So it came over somehow in a container, or somehow we got the boat shipped over with our parts.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff so that was crazy. And then they took us to an island to drink, and that way we couldn't cause any trouble. Mm-hmm. And Dan David, who's a very conservative guy, very funny, but very conservative when it comes to drinking.
Yeah.
He got a little too much aquavit that night, and we had to carry him off the boat and then back on later. And those were great memories, just a lot of fun.
Dan David, hopefully Dan and Dale will be future podcast guests. Yeah. But what was I going to say? The aquavit, I'd forgotten the name. And I remember having a bottle, somebody, or maybe you brought it back from Sweden for me one time, and you said, store it in the freezer, and that's pretty brutal stuff.
It's like tequila. The first couple shots are terrible. And then after that, you don't even remember drinking the rest of it.
That's true.
Eating those little crayfish,
Yeah. How about as far as people? Who were your favorite people that you worked with?
Well, I have to say, when I first started out, John Vinci and Alan Moss and John Moss brothers, all the service guys, Dan David. I mean, when I first went out in the field, because I was released so abruptly when Bill Charles left to join the DeLorean. I mean, I really had to call in and get help from people from time to time, and just figure out what I was doing out there.
Yeah.
And they were always supportive. It could be Friday afternoon at 4:00, and if I called with a question, I mean, they always had the time for me and always helped me out. So I think I always thank them for helping me get off to a good start. And then the Swedes that used to visit us, they would come on assignment, which Bjorn Blad and those guys, Gus Jockford, when they came over and stayed with us for a year or two, was always a lot of fun dealing, getting to know them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then,
it had to be a culture shock for them too, coming over here. Quite different.
So I appreciated it more when I got to Japan, what they went through and what it was like to be overseas. And I think probably in Japan, the hardest thing to get used to was the food.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of Japanese, you think, well, it's all sushi. But I remember the first time they took me out for a dinner, and I was the guest of honor because I had just come over, and they gave me the fish head. And first you thought they're joking. You really want me to eat the fish head? And the meat around the eye sockets was the most tender, they said. So it was a treat to get the fish head. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate I could eat most food, so I had.
I was just saying, you didn't have any cultural faux pas. Then.
No. And then when they gave me eel, during the summer, eel on barbecue eel on rice, that was okay. And when we were in Korea, and they brought me out sushi, and they said this is the best sushi you ever had, and it was they just caught this fish, and they pegged them to a board. Mm-hmm. And then they brought the chef knives out, and they cut me some fish meat right off the live fish as he's flopping around.
Oh, jeez.
And told me, here, this is as fresh as it gets.
Wow.
So, some of it they were trying you out, but some of it, that's what they ate. So if you were going to be part of the group over there, you just kind of had to go with it.
Yeah. And how big was the apartment you stayed in over there?
We were very fortunate. When Debbie and I were over there, the dollar was extremely strong.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it was because of that, the apartment we can get was based on the US to yen exchange rate. Mm-hmm. So when we got there, we were able to get, believe it or not, a 2,300 square foot apartment.
Wow.
Which is unheard of in Tokyo.
Yeah. Right.
It was in a very expensive area where only, all the expats lived. I mean, Japanese, very few people could live in this area. So it was almost all foreigners. And there was a private school there where Elizabeth went, a British school. So she went to school 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade when she was there. But I mean, it had 2 balconies. I mean, it was so big. I mean, we had 3 bedrooms, big living room, kitchen. It was so big that when I met friends in Japan, I was very careful who I brought back to see a place. because they're all living in shoe boxes
Yeah.
of 600 square feet, where the living room is the dining room, is the bedroom.
Yeah.
Everything is one.
Right.
And when I brought them back and they saw where I was living, I mean, they go, "This isn't living in Tokyo."
How much are you making exactly?
So then the dollar went down and the yen
Yeah.
went up. And
Yeah.
when Pontus came to join me, unfortunately, he couldn't get into my building. He had to go down the road a bit. But the rent was about $13,000 a month there.
Back then.
Back then.
Holy crap.
It was less than 10 when I got there, but it was over 13 within 6 months because the dollar went to hell.
Oh, wow.
And then I had my parking spot for my car that they gave me. That was a couple thousand a month.
Wow.
And you couldn't have a car in Tokyo unless you had a certificate that said you had a parking spot. That's how tight parking is over there.
Was that always a Saab or a GM car?
Always a Saab.
Always a Saab.
Although when GM came over, we had a Saab, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Corvette, Opel, Saturn, and of course I had Porsches because our importer in Japan was Saab Porsche importer.
Nice.
So all those cars that I just mentioned were in the PR pool.
Mm-hmm.
So one weekend, Debbie and I took a Corvette out and went out to the country, which was a great car to drive around in.
Mm-hmm.
And then another weekend, we took a Porsche, and it was just.
Are those anomalies? Are they not there and hardly at all Corvettes and stuff? Or
well, until GM brought them over, there were really no Corvettes there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when GM came over, other than Saturn, Opel, and us, we were the only ones that had right-hand drive cars.
Oh, that's right, right-hand drive.
So, because that's how over there. So when Chevrolet came over with the Corvette and Cadillac came over, they were all left-hand drive cars.
Ah, okay.
So and General Motors had no intention of making right-hand drive cars. So people had to accept the cars as they were.
Wow.
Which really hurt their sales initially.
I can't imagine driving a left-hand drive car on the wrong side of the road or the opposite side of the road. That had to be quite a culture shock or driving shock.
Well, when General Motors got there, they didn't realize that, like, to park your car in Tokyo, because parking's so tight, a lot of the parking garages are like grain elevators.
Yeah.
Where you drive down a tiny alley and there's a wheel that you drive your car on, and the wheel turns your car to a different direction because it's so tight. And then you go in the grain elevator, which was like an indoor Ferris wheel, and your car would go up in this circle.
Amazing.
But it was so tight, your mirrors had to tuck in. So
Right.
all the Japanese car had a button and mirrors tucked in, where we did not have that.
No, we never had that there. Well, no, maybe toward the very end they might have had it.
And when you pulled them in, they had a clip you had to release, and no one knew how to release it, so they would break them all the time.
Jeez.
And they were so expensive to replace, and people it was not a good thing.
No. Well, now, of course, that retractable mirrors on some higher-end cars in the U.S., but yeah, that's great. Speaking of the vehicles, what was your absolute favorite Saab of all time?
I would say a 900 convertible. And I forget exactly what we called it, but it was like a Daytona yellow, bright yellow.
Was it the Bumblebee? It had the black panels along the bottom.
Yeah, it was the SPG model.
Yeah.
So it had the black bearings on it.
Yeah.
With black with the bright yellow.
Yep.
Convertible. I mean, whenever you drove that car, I mean, people would stop and whether they liked it or didn't like it, they would look at you.
Yeah. I remember I was at a New Jersey owners convention 15 years ago, and there were like 15 Bumblebee cars all lined up together, and you rarely saw that. And that was really something. I haven't seen one in a long time, but
I had Sonnets. I had a bunch of Sonnets, the sports car, but they rusted out so badly. And it was just, unless you knew I had a friend that had a body shop and could weld in panels for you.
Right.
I mean, the cars just didn't last that long. But no, I would say the convertibles were my favorite car.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff over your right shoulder, I'm seeing a grill and a Saab Scania emblem. Where'd you get all those?
Well, when we had the warehouse, when you moved to Caterpillar,
Yeah.
we got to go through the warehouse and see what we were going to ship down to you.
Right.
And there in the warehouse were 3 grills from a 9.2. I think 58, 59. Wow. I could be wrong. I mean, and so I had there were 3 of them. So I gave 2 to Dan David, and I kept 1. And Dan David took his 2, and 1 he gave to Ralph Millett, who was the first president of Saab in the U.S.
Right.
And Ralph brought us here. He from in New Haven. That's where the cars first arrived.
Right.
So when Ralph retired, Dan took one of the grills, had it framed, and it made quite a very nice piece out of it, and gave it to him as a gift.
Oh, nice. Of course, that's got the famous aircraft logo, which is great. Yeah. Cool.
So I have 1 and Dan has 1. I think those were the only. They were all brand new in the package when we got them. So
wow. And when we did our failed at first attempt at podcast, you had a whole bunch of stuff. What other collectible stuff do you have?
I have a lot of model cars, the little toy cars, which I kept. And because I was in parts and accessories, and even though it's been so many years now, I still have a Saab briefcase. I still have Saab pens. Of course, the ink is all dried out by now, but I have Saab cufflinks. I mean, a whole bunch of miscellaneous stuff in a drawer that I brought back, and some things from Japan that are exclusive for to the Japanese market. So
I remember I had a ton of stuff first at the office, and then in 2011 when we went under, everybody went through that anger phase, and I took 1 picture and put it on eBay, and I sold everything for $300. And I had every radio controlled car, every Scania truck, every model, and of course, being in the, shall we say, the true name, the distribution center, we would get the scuff and dent cars back. I was like, oh, don't throw that out. Oh, I'll take that. So you had a fender that was scratched, and you turn that away from you. But yeah, my little cubicle was a shrine to toys. It was out of control.
But as you said, we all went through that anger phase.
Yeah.
And when JM pulled the plug on us and first moved the company from Orange, which was, our strength is always New England.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people never understood that most of our car sales, probably 60% of the United States car sales were in New England.
Right.
On the East Coast. So, we were a winter car. That's where we were the strongest. In the Midwest, too, we did well. But the East Coast was big. And when they moved the headquarters to Atlanta, no one knows a Saab in Atlanta. Right. And then they moved it to Detroit, which was another mistake. And then when it got bought out by, what was that company in Amsterdam that bought us out?
Spiker,
yeah.
Yeah, for 2 years.
And then they came, and when they bought it out, they had a big dealer meeting in the East Coast, and Charlie Secor from Secor Saab in New London invited me up. And I went with him as a visitor. I was no longer an employee, but I knew a lot of people. And when he announced at the meeting, the new president of Saab from Spiker, that they were moving the headquarters, they were leaving it in Detroit, and they're going to focus their energy on the East Coast, we knew they weren't going to make it. They had no clue how to make the car successful.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
And it, like you're talking about always being a New England car, I think during yours and my time together, at one point, I remember hearing this number, within 50 miles of downtown Boston, there were 17 Saab dealers. For some reason, that number stuck in my head all these years. And I believe that's true. Everywhere. Because
Boston's a big area, and I think they were including the outlying sources too, besides just downtown Boston. But it was, and they all worked together. That was the great part.
Really?
No one was under, all the service and parts guys always worked together, because at the beginning, fixing the cars was a full-time job.
Yeah. And I think that was also great with the technical training. Everybody got to know each other, all the technicians and that was regional from the Northeast. But I just had Dave Kapitulik as my second guest, and he had fond memories of that time working in the Connecticut office.
You talk, if you get a chance to have John Vinci on,
Mm.
John Vinci, we used to, every year in New Haven, they had what they called the bed race.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Where they would make a bed and people would have to push it through the street. It was a race to get your bed to the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one year they did a Swedish horse.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the year we all heard the bad news that General Motors was pulling the plug. So John took, and other people, but John was the ringleader. He took all the airbag modules that we had in service and we filled them into the big Swedish horse.
Yep.
And then he had everyone look out the window to the parking area and push the button and they exploded. And his horse just went all over the parking lot. And that kind of set it off for all of us, you know?
I did see that video. That was pretty funny. I'll have to see if I have a copy or if somebody has a copy, and maybe we can add it as a compliment to on the YouTube channel. That was very funny.
I mean, we all had such love for the company. So when this happened, as you know, it was just hard to deal with. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember the stories when they announced them moving to Georgia. The guy from GM came in and he had 2 armed Wells Fargo private security guards with guns in their pockets, and nobody could believe it. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? You know, you're going to riot or something?
Yeah.
You know, it was like clueless. But
I don't know if you remember, you talk about dealer trips. There was a dealer trip we had one year, and they had the dinner at where they hold a Nobel Prize.
Oh, wow.
Stockholm. Not the Peace Prize, not the one, what's his name wants to win, but the other Nobel Prizes are all done in Sweden.
Oh, okay. The science and economics and literature, I think.
Peace Prize is in Norway.
Okay.
So, but the Swedes control the other one, and they had it. And it's an old museum. I mean, it took over. I forget what building they took over, but quite a prestigious building in Stockholm. Mm-hmm. And they had this dinner there, and the place was enormous. The hall, they could fit I forget how many thousands of people they could serve dinner to at the same time.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that was a fun experience.
Yeah. When we were talking about earlier about the ice racing, did you get up? Like, I got lucky enough the one time I got to Sweden, I got to stay at the ice hotel. Did you guys have that kind of privilege or just regular hotels up there?
Yeah, just the regular hotels.
Yeah.
We never got to do that, although my daughter Elizabeth turned 40 last year. And believe it or not, she wanted to go back to Sweden, Finland, and Norway and see the Northern Lights and stay at the ice hotel.
Right.
So it was the first time I really was back to Sweden in a long time. Mm-hmm. So we spent 2 weeks there. Started in Norway and worked out Finland to Norway to Sweden. And we ended up at the ice hotel. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I lasted 30 minutes in the bed, and then I slept on the couch in the heated lobby.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was so cold. You know, it was something else. Yeah. But, you know, it was amazing to see.
Of course, I mean, we made it through the night. We had 2 rooms scheduled.
Okay.
And long story short, so I went there, I talked to him, and I combined it to one bigger room, what they called a suite. Yeah. And we had a heated bathroom off our room.
Oh, must be nice.
So if you got real cold in the middle of the night, you could go into the bathroom, make a cup of coffee or tea, warm up a little bit, and come back out.
Wow. You know, we had to go down the hallway to go to the restroom. And of course, that was heated. And you and me with eyeglasses, I would completely fog over. And I'm like, you know, where am I in the restroom? You know, and go back. And I was like, then I'm a terrible insomniac. So I went for a walk. Oh, what a mistake that was at 3 a.m. in the dark. And, you know, it was so cold, and the cold comes up through your shoes. And I wasn't wearing the polar outfit they made for me or whatever. But,
right.
And it was a good time. But, man, did we get sick of having deer meat, the meatballs and sausage, and, you know, you name it. It was.
But, you know, one thing I think the night we were there 2 nights, one night in the ice hotel and one night in the regular hotel part.
Yeah.
And when the second night we were there, with the 3 of us, Debbie, Elizabeth, and I were sitting in the bar, and there was a young girl there, and we got into the conversation with us, and she was working at the mine. There's a big mine that's up the road, and she was
doing
something there. And we happened to talk, and I said, I got to tell you, I worked for Saab all these years. And this look came on her face, and I told her how when I was in charge of parts and service that I had gone to Uusikaupunki, Finland,
Yep.
and saw where they made the convertibles.
Right.
And how proud the Finns were of
Yep.
their assembly line. So she excused herself kind of abruptly. And I thought, wow, maybe I said something wrong. I don't know. And she left, and she came back, and she said her father was the assistant plant manager in Uusikaupunki.
Wow.
And she gave me a Uusikaupunki Saab convertible keychain that he had given her. And she had another one back in Finland, but she said she wanted me to have that since I had been there. And so I have that upstairs in my little collection.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yeah. So you never knew when you're going to run into someone from the
Sure.
Saab family, and it would be great.
I'm impressed by your pronunciation of that town again. What was the name again?
Uusikaupunki.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
That is a fun name. And didn't they make the Vigans, I think, after that, or with the convertibles, I think, or at least some of the years of the Vigans. I hope I'm right.
Yeah, I'm not sure about. I don't know if they did the Vig. I know they had the Saab convertible, and then when GM, when they lost that because Saab went out of business, they started to make Porsches for a while.
Oh, that's right.
Because
right.
But no, I don't know if they did the Vig and Jet.
Maybe I'm wrong. Speaking of plants, I saw on YouTube. I haven't watched it yet. There's a new video out about the 2 years of the Malmo plant.
Oh.
But everybody remember what a high-tech, high-end place that was, and then GM killed it in 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that's on saabplanet.com. So I'll have to check that out too.
Yeah, one of the great memories when we went to Finland was I was with 2 Swedes, and then of course the Finnish representative that was taking us around. So we went out for dinner, and he asked me just nonchalant, had I ever been to Russia? Mm-hmm. And I said, no, why? And he said, because I'm going to take you.
Wow.
The next thing I know, we headed down this dirt road, and there was all these signs in Finnish and Russian that said, "You're coming to the end of the road. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Danger. Do not go." And of course, we kept going. And then lights came on and some other things. And he said to me, "We can go a little bit further. You are now in Russia." And then some other lights came on and a siren. And he said to me, "Okay, we're done now. Now we turn around and go out back really quick."
Oh, my God.
So that was my first visit into Russia.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's pre-Gorbachev, right?
Yeah,
in the 90s, I think.
It's kind of crazy to do that.
God.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know he was going to do it. But,
no, that's true, too. That's funny. I always ask everybody, I don't know if you have any answer for this question, but did you have any quote-unquote brushes with greatness / celebrity in your time at Saab?
Celebrities, let's see. Well, when I first started, Mary Travers from Peter, Paul and Mary.
Oh, yeah.
She had a Saab up in Danbury. And it was an older Saab. A transmission went on it. She was a couple months out of warranty.
Mm-hmm.
So they told her how much a new transmission was going to cost. So I took care of her, and she was very grateful. And I got her. She gave me her autograph for thousands of dollars I spent on the transmission. But that was nice of her. It was nice to meet her and do that.
Yeah.
And I met some others, but probably the strangest story I ever had was when I was in Greenwich. I was the service rep, and I covered Greenwich, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And Greenwich, people don't know, is a very, very wealthy little town. And this lady asked to see the Saab rep. So she came in, and she had her 900, and she had a place up in Vermont. And when she took her car to Vermont, she put the seat heater on. And I don't know if you remember, the early seat heaters did not have a thermostat in the seat.
It was a auto on-off or something. Yeah. Okay.
And apparently the seat heater stayed on all the way to Vermont and burnt a hole in her mink coat.
Jeez.
Full-length mink coat with a big burn hole in it. So she asked me, what would Saab pay for that? And of course, I had no budget to pay for a fur coat.
Yeah.
So I said to her, "I'll make you a deal. If you please will put it through your homeowner's insurance, because I'm sure they'll cover it because it should be covered.
Yeah.
I personally will write you a letter and guarantee you an extra 2 years on your car warranty."
No, really?
Because her warranty was just expiring.
Okay.
And the fur coat was, I forget, it was like 10,000. I mean, it was a lot of money,
Yeah.
more money than I could have ever come up with for my warranty budget.
Yeah. God.
So
I remember those
okay.
days, and somebody would send in the pants, and the whole bottom of the pants were burned out.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you were there, and it was like, why didn't they pull over and get out of the car or something? They just let it
she
burn.
had this big full length coat. She said
Yeah.
she didn't smell anything until she got up to Vermont. By then, it already had burned a hole in it, and so.
Yeah, because I think right after that period of time, then they had the off switch on the dashboard. Yeah, and after
You had an off switch. You had a thermostat. You had lots of.
Right.
That thermostat used to be a little button in the seat, and you used to always made a hole in the velour or the always made a mark.
I remember those days too. Oof. I want to, before we wind down here, I've compiled a bunch of Saab trivia off the internet and tweaked a few stories. Some may be true, some may be false. There are no right or wrong answers for you. We're not keeping score, but maybe we can have a couple of laughs about this. And now, you weren't at the Palm Springs dealer launch. That was in '99, but maybe you know the stories. During the Palm Springs dealer launch meeting, a Saab Drachen fighter jet flew by with the 9.3 and 9.5 logos painted on the fuselage. True or false?
Well, I never heard that, so I'm going to say false.
The answer is actually true.
Really?
It was a rental jet company that became famous for painting the Saab Drachen later with the Miller Genuine Draft logos and used in the Miller beer commercials right after that period. But I wasn't there either. But I think everybody was at the Palm Springs airport having a meal. And that famously, the jets went by and then the cargo plane landed and out drove a Saab, and I forget his name, Mr. Saab came out at the wheels of the car. Those are the meetings that, I got to stay behind.
Well, those are the meetings that told you we had way too much money or we spent too much money on that stuff. And that's why Scania got mad at us sooner or later.
Well, what the guys were telling me in previous podcasts at the Opry one, the not the Grand Ole, but the Opryland Hotel, they were told, no matter what it costs, pay for it, sign for it. Whatever the dealer wants, whatever you want, sign for it. That was pretty crazy.
Well, a dealer came down from New York, and he had a Saab. He made a Saab limousine.
Oh yeah, I saw that at a convention.
He wanted to show it off to the other dealers in case anyone was interested. He wanted to sell them, the limousines. So he wanted to park it right in front of the Grand Ole Opry. And they said, no, there's no way you can park it in front of the Grand Opry. You can't do it. And he said to me, Mike, I'm from New York. There's always a way. Next thing I know, the guy pulled a wad of money out of his pocket, and he just told the guy to tell him when. And next thing I knew, the car was parked right in front of the hotel. So as every dealer pulled up, they saw the limousine out front.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was that Legend Saab who did that? I don't remember. But I remember seeing the car. I think, one of the limos was at the Denver Owners Convention in '99. I remember seeing it there. But there's a couple of them around. So I love those hybrid ones. Like you've seen the 9000s that became car carriers. They cut the back of it off, and they're pretty cool. All right, question number 2. Saab engineers in Sweden refused to design a cup holder for the U.S. market because they felt a cup holder would lead to drinking and driving. True or false?
True.
That is true, yes. We all heard that story. They just didn't understand the Americans like to have coffee in their drive to work in the morning. It just didn't happen.
And then where did they put the cup holder when they finally gave it to us? Right near the center console. And when you spilled your Coca-Cola from McDonald's, where did all that Coke go? The sticky Coke? Right to where the key was, right between the seats. Yeah. Because at the time, it was the lowest part in the console. Yeah. So all the Coke would go there, and then the key would get real stiff. Finally, they elevated it on the 9.3 a little bit, but yeah.
Well, you could do a 10-minute conversation on the history of Saab cup holders and how bad they were.
They were terrible,
just the worst. And I remember that when I was in my first lease car, and it was like, it held a can, but nothing else. You couldn't get a 16-ounce bottle. You couldn't get anything. It was just not the greatest. Question 3: the 16-strong project team behind the first Saab car in the 50s Many or most of the team did not have a driver's license. True or false?
Well, the 50s, I'd probably say true, but that's strange. But yeah, no, I'd say true back then.
You are correct. Most of them did not. They were originally trained as aircraft engineers, and it was believed that only the project leader, Gunnar Lundstrom, and test driver Rolf, Melde, had a license, which is kind of funny. Two more here. The famous moose crash test was originally performed using a cadaver moose taken from the highways of Sweden. True or false?
Jeez, could you imagine if that's true? I hope not. I would say false.
You are correct. It used a simulated moose crash test developed in the mid-'80s involving the car striking a 770-pound dummy moose head-on at 43 miles an hour or 70 kilometers an hour. Hitting one of these large animals is a relatively common occurrence on the rural roads in Sweden, and the introduction of this demanding test is typical of Saab's real-life safety approach. But I remember that was something I learned like the first day or two at Saab. It was about the moose test.
Yeah. Well, we were always known for our safety, so that was always our...
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the Top Gear salute to Saab when it went out of business?
No.
Boy, look! I encourage people to look for that on YouTube.
Okay.
They loved Saab, and they did like a 20-minute story on Saab, and they did a great demonstration. They had a BMW 3 Series, and they dropped it on a crane upside down, and the BMW pancaked and flat. You'd be dead. Oh. And then they did a Saab, and of course the whole roof never budged. It was so strong, which we knew.
Oh, and John, when I was out in the field, I mean, at the beginning when airbags first came out, whenever there was a fatality in a Saab, we had to investigate it. Yep. In all the years I was out in the field, I only had one fatality. There was a gentleman up in Vermont where unfortunately he flipped his Saab and he had the sunroof open. And when he flipped it, he ended up upside down in a river.
Wow.
And he drowned.
Well,
that was the only fatality I ever investigated.
Yeah. I remember there was maybe it was a print ad or something about, of all the cars in the world, your chance of survival was greatest in a Saab. It had the lowest fatality rate per 100,000 vehicles or something ever, which was really amazing. All right, my last true or false question. Tesla owner Elon Musk originally based the design of the Model X on early Saab models and drove a Saab for many years.
Well, I hope that's false.
Your final answer?
My final answer.
Okay. You're correct again. The answer is false. This came to be from an actual celebrity fact that another billionaire businessman, Sir Richard Branson, drove a Saab 9.5 Biopower to demonstrate his commitment to greener motoring. So, well, congratulations. I think you had the most correct answers out of that.
Can I ask you a question?
All right, sir. Go ahead.
Do you ever remember the Saab tent?
The Saab what?
Hatchback? The one on the back of a hatchback?
Oh, the cupola? Oh, no, you're talking the hard top or a tent?
You lift up the hatchback of your Saab, and it was a tent that hooked onto the back, so you slept in the car when you folded down the seats, but you had a little compartment outside, a little tent where you can make coffee or sit down and have a...
You're talking about a canvas tent, not the hard top.
Canvas tent.
Oh, no, I don't remember that. That was an accessory we had in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever use
one? We took
it
to a couple racetracks. I don't know if we ever sold it, but I know we had a prototype for a while.
That's funny.
That was
fun, we had quite an accessory collection over the years there. Lots of good choices. Yeah. Well, just as we're wrapping up here, but tell us about your life after Saab, which was starting in 95, you said, when you left.
95, yeah. So I was coming back to the States. I was looking for a job since I wasn't going to go to Singapore, and there was nothing for me in Atlanta at the time. So I was staying with a friend, my old college roommate, who lived in Darien, Connecticut, near New York. And I was interviewed for a position at Mercedes and BMW in Montvale, New Jersey. My good old friend Bill Kelly had moved on to Mercedes-Benz, and some other Saab people that didn't want to go to Atlanta were working at BMW and Mercedes. So I applied for a job there, and it looked like that's where I was going to work. But I wasn't relishing the commute or having to get an apartment in New Jersey so that, I didn't have to commute so much. And my old college roommate, who was a pharmacist, had a pharmacy, and his partners were retiring that week to Florida. And he was looking for someone to help run the pharmacy, do the insurance, and run the front of the store and the bookkeeping and office in the back. And I realized there wasn't much of a difference between the cars, and we had warranty, they have insurance, we had parts, they have items, but everything basically was kind of the same when you came down to it. So I decided to quit traveling as much as I was, and for the next 23 years, he and I ran Reeves Pharmacy in Darien, Connecticut. Yeah.
And is it still around, or is your partner
Still there.
running it?
I retired in November of 18, and he and his wife are still running it now. Yeah.
Wow, great. And you're still independent.
Yeah, there's quite a few independents still here in New England. I mean, he's the only. I mean, there's probably at least 30 or 40 still in Connecticut. Not as many as there used to be, but there's.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I introduced you as my life coach, you always found me great deals on any maintenance drugs that saved me thousands of dollars in retirement. That was great. And you're enjoying retirement. You've been traveling a lot. What else do you do to keep busy?
Well, this time of year, yard work.
Yeah.
We have a pool in the yard, so it's already opened, even though the water, I was in it today because it was so hot here today. We're in the 80s, really? But it's still cold. I think the pool just got to 64 degrees the other day. So
it's a little chilly for me.
A little chilly, yeah. I was in and out quick. But so during the summer, we pretty much stay put, and we enjoy our yard. And then come October or until, I would say, February, we're traveling somewhere.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you were just down here in Florida, and you and I had lunch. It was, 2-3 weeks ago? And that was, except you got a little lost getting here. But
yeah, I apologize for that. For some reason, our GPS wanted to keep taking us the wrong way, and probably took us an extra half an hour to figure out that you were right down the street from where we were. Yeah.
That was so great to see, and a nice surprise out of the blue. But next time you're down here, please come by again.
And we'd love to get you to Connecticut, John.
Yeah, it was one of those reunions. Do you know where it's going to be, the reunion this year at all? Somewhere
usually
near New Haven?
Usually a little further out towards Madison or Branford. Dale, Dale and Dan David, and Valerie Torfey and Steve Rossi. They're kind of the old, the guys that keep that all together for us, and which is great.
No, it's amazing. For those who don't know, I mean, the love and dedication employees had to the company, and it's just amazing that they're still having reunions. I mean, people go to that more than their high school reunions. It's the company reunion.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've been to one, but I remember the one, I think it was in Old Lyme, and I had my khaki pants on, and I'm waiting in line to whatever it was to sign in, and they had all that bring your own food tray.
Right.
I backed right into a chocolate cake. So I had a chocolate cake stain on my butt the entire party. I was like, oh boy, only me. So,
Did you say you had John Ritter on your show yet?
Yes, in the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get that out as soon as I can. That's the next technical hurdle is getting these online.
I'll leave you with my last John Ritter story.
Okay.
So we had a meeting in Pennsylvania, near where he used to live. And he decided, we had the evening free, so we decided we should take a ride to his house and check it out. And for some reason, we took my company car. And John drove because he knew the way. And he took us down these dirt roads. And I should preface it by saying he was a race car driver, John. Always loved racing. And so he took us down this dirt road, and we were, I don't know, 60, 70 miles out on this dirt road with nothing but headlights. And we came around the corner, and there in the middle of the road are people with telescopes looking at the stars.
Okay.
And they screamed, we screamed, we went off the road, of course.
Oh my God.
Down into, there was these ditches on the side for the water. Right. And we went down in the ditch, bang, 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 bang. You hear all the, everything get hit in the car. And then John somehow pulls the car out of the ditch, and we spin it around, and these people are fine. We're okay.
Wow.
And we get back to where the meeting was, and we look at my car in the light, and it is scratched up to bits on the sides. I mean, covered in dust. I mean, it was, so we parked it in the farthest part of the parking lot we could. And we just left the car, and then I brought it back and to the dealer, and they said to me, who was driving this car? The brakes are shot. I needed total all brakes on it and everything. And so
somehow he didn't mention that story during our podcast.
And we had to cover that on the warranty so we all didn't get in trouble for that.
Jeez.
I had the dealer just put a claim through and said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it.
Two last things. Is there any, you'd like to promote anything, any company, any volunteer groups, charities, or anything you're passionate about?
I'm a member of Trumbull Rotary, and we do a lot of volunteer work. All the money we raise goes to, scholarships and food banks and other things like that. Home of the Braves in Bridgeport, the veterans and stuff. So I finally have time to get back, so I enjoy doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And lastly, any closing thoughts about your time at Saab?
Yeah, it's just best times of our lives, I think. I mean, it was a great time to be a car person.
Yeah.
It was before corporations took over everything, and we were just a small little car company, just having a lot of fun with a great product, and
That's so true.
Good people. Yeah.
My thoughts exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mike Raflowitz, I really appreciate your time and support, and we might be seeing you as a sometime co-host of the podcast.
Okay.
And I know I'm going to rely on you to find me some more guests, because you're well connected in the Saab employee community.
Well, if you can't make it in September, which hopefully you can for the Saab reunion, then, because that's where those are the next group of people you got to get to.
Yeah.
Because those are the real, this is the core here in Connecticut.
Yes.
So
true. Yes. The reunions are in Connecticut. They're not in Georgia.
No.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Cool. No, we never went back to Georgia or Detroit. No.
No, I know. All right. Thank you once again, Mike, and all the best. Take care.
I'm glad you're keeping the Saab brand going.
Thanks. You too.
Good luck.
Memories fade and stories get embellished with time. The views, information, and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the Saab and the Rearview Mirror podcast, its producers, or affiliated organizations. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Under no circumstances shall we be liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of this information.